Hello, Lisa.
Hello, Janet. I love your backdrop.
It's not a backdrop. I'm
That
at the
used to
beach.
be, and that is so cool.
Isn't it funky?
I love it.
That is actually a real photo that I took
I love it.
on my little 24-hour getaway.
It looks like you're at the
Sunset
beach.
at
I
the
love it.
beach.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Yes, beautiful white sand beach here in Nova
Yes.
Scotia. So, Lisa, we've got this little giveaway going on,
Yes.
and it was all about the viewers writing in their questions all in one spot for us, so we can get a lot of them answered all at once.
Yes.
And
I'm
of
down.
course, eventually here we're going to pick a winner, etc. So, I am going to throw some questions at you. Some of them can be answered in a word, some in a sentence, some might involve a little bit more explanation, and we're going to
Okay.
try to name who asked the question and get through them
That's
as
awesome.
best we can with the amount of time that we have. So, asking a few personal questions, Kelly Wilson, what kind of farm do you live on?
We live on a tobacco and grain farm.
And Judy Key Ingram says, how far do you live from Wake Forest?
Oh, I guess she's referring to Wake Forest, the university. Janet, did she say?
Perhaps.
Because Wake Forest is also a city in North Carolina.
Well, how about for both?
Well, I've never been to Wake Forest, the city, but I'm assuming it's 45 minutes to an hour. But Wake Forest University is 35 to 40 minutes from here.
Quick one here. What breed is Cookie?
She is a Cocker Spaniel.
Okay, that was also from Judy, I believe. And here's Patty Taplet Glassell asking, have you always had a passion for cooking, or did you get into it after you got married?
What a great question. I actually have always had a passion for cooking. My mom cooked a lot. I mean, there were 5 kids, so she had to cook a lot. And, back then there was not a takeout option. So my mom cooked every night during the week, unless we had leftovers. And then when I got married to a farmer, it just was a natural thing. I also loved home economics in high school, and I was in FHA, which is Future Homemakers of America. I'm telling my age big time, but we learned to cook there too. And I love being in my kitchen.
Sue Allen wants to know how much you were impacted by the recent hurricane.
Oh, Sue, great question. We had some of our tobacco plants had blown over, which makes it harder to pull, but we were blessed that we didn't have them scattered all over the place.
And Kick Stars asks, your grill, your Blackstone grill, in the end, now that you've used it so much, do you love it?
I do love it. And all of us love it. Well, I say all of us, the boys, when they're here, they like to cook on it. And I love to cook on it. My husband is not a cook. So he's not one of those husbands that, aprons up and grills out.
The next question is about cast iron pans. Donna Grayer Beal asks, how often do you season yours? And then Mary Jo Page Posey says, how do you season a cast iron pan?
Great question. When you get a new cast iron pan, you want to cook something the first time that's very greasy in it, like chicken or bacon. And then when you clean your cast iron pan, you don't want to use soap. You just want to use hot water. Wipe it out really well, and then I put mine back in the oven and put it on 10 minutes on 350 just to dry everything out. And I keep mine in my oven. Now, if you're talking about an old one that's rusty, it's quite a different process. You have to get the rust off, and you can ball up tinfoil and scrub it with that, or with one of those, oh shucks, what's the name of that?
Like an SOS pad or something?
No, the ones that are woolly, like
Yeah.
Steel wool. And
Okay.
you got to get the rust off first of an old one. And then you want to season it with something really greasy. I would suggest country hammer bacon or chicken, and cook it in that. Spray it with some cooking spray, and then cook it in that. And the more you use it, the more seasoned it gets.
Right. Okay, now Melissa Ann Flannery, Linda Davis, and Sherelle Adams all ask, How in the world did you get started doing these cooking demos?
9 years ago, my oldest son went to college, and I have two sons. My sons are 27 and 23. And when my oldest son went to college, I really thought I would lose it because I love having my kids at home and the camaraderie that that brings in and out of the house. They always had friends in and out. And I was always cooking for them. So I had a lot of energy. So I started sharing some videos on my personal Facebook of recipes I was doing. And people really got into it. I was pleasantly surprised. So then I started a page, The Cooking Cutting Up, to do all the videos there instead of on my personal Facebook.
Yeah, you had to switch over from personal to a business one because of the size of the audience. And one
Yeah.
time, I think you were called Lisa, Cooking with Lisa or something was your title at one point.
Yes.
You were, nestling into the size of the audience, etc.
Yes.
Okay, so now, um, Donna Castle wants to know, how did you meet your husband?
Oh, what a sweet question. Okay, actually, I knew Andy and his family growing up because we grew up less than 3 or 4 miles apart. He is 3 years older than me. So when I started high school in the ninth grade, he was a senior. And I knew who he was. He knew who I was. Families knew each other just from community. But we did not actually start dating until I was a senior in high school. And he had already graduated from a 2-year ag program at NC State. And we ended up, it was a whole big to do. I ended up running into him at a party, and it was on a deck and it was dark. And, there was very little lighting. But when I saw him, I thought, oh my gosh, if he would just ask me out. And so he called, he got my number from the guy who was hosting the party and called and asked me out.
Well, that's so sweet.
Yeah.
Okay, so Mitzi Watson, I love this question. Would you ever do a cooking segment with the imaginary farmer?
I would love to if he would agree to do it. Janet, you might be instrumental in
I
that
could wrap it,
because
I could
he
wrap
could
it
make
around my pinky and make him do that.
you so could during the winter months. I think he would do it. And he won second place in a church contest for the chess pie. So we might could talk him into doing that. Andy's not a big talker. So thankfully, because I do a lot of talking. But anyway, um, Janet may have to work on him with that.
Julie Savage says, when is your birthday?
February 7th, 1970. And I share my birthday with my late grandfather. My grandfather Engel also was a February 7th baby.
Leslie Fries Ladd asks, did your husband and other son, Drew, play for Wake Forest?
Oh, great question. The answer is no. Andy and Drew both played sports all through high school. They both played baseball and football, and both of them were very good, but they did not play in college at the college level.
All right. Now, Lisa Robinson is anxious to know if you will be cooking with Paula Deen again.
Oh, Lisa, I hope so. Miss Paula and I left it very open. And, Lisa Purdue would be instrumental in that as well, because if we can get Miss Paula here in North Carolina, we can cook together here, which would be awesome. And don't get me wrong, if she tells me to come back to Savannah, I'm there. So it's definitely a
So
possibility.
am I.
Yeah, exactly. We'll meet there, Janet. I know, right? So I hope so. The answer is I hope so.
Donna Grayerville asked, do your boys still use your cookbooks?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to it. I'll tell you this. When Drew got out on his own, they do their own meals. They love grilling, and they love grilling like a meat, a potato, and then do a green. So I don't know. Spencer has no reason to use it because he still lives here while he's going to college. So the time will tell. And, Drew doesn't live far from here, so he's in and out a lot. So it's easy to say, Mom, can you make me some peanut butter bars?
Right. Laura, I'm trying to read the name that I wrote my own handwriting. I think it says Laverne or Lauren Nelson. Sorry about that. She wants to know if you ever sleep.
That's a great question. To be honest with you, I went through a period of hormonal change where I couldn't sleep. And so I'd be up during the middle of the night baking blueberry bread and stuff like that. Thankfully, I have come to a point in my age that I realize sleep is very important. And so I try to get 6 to 8 hours a night now.
I think that's also a comment on how busy you seem to be to the
Yes, I
viewers.
like being busy though, Janet. People ask me that a lot. I like being busy and having a plan of what the day is going to bring about.
Yes. Okay, now Gail Troutman says, do you ever get tired of cooking?
Yes, I do. We do takeout, at least once a week, or we eat leftovers. So I don't have to cook every single night, especially with my youngest being in and out of college playing football, and then my oldest is, out of the nest. So, and there are certain things that I really enjoy cooking, and it's probably sweets. I love sweets, but yes.
That's an answer to one of the questions is actually. And then Debbie Jackson Howard says, what is your least favorite recipe to cook?
Honestly, it's my husband's favorite, but I dread cooking it the most because it's a process and it's cube steak, cream potatoes, and green beans. Now I'm good at it because we've done it so many times because that's his favorite meal, but it is a process and there's a lot of cleanup, when you're frying meat and then making gravy so that's probably my least favorite.
Okay, and so Amy and Josh Monday say, what is your favorite thing to cook?
Definitely sweets. Definitely sweets. I love to make a pound cake. It's therapeutic for me, whatever flavor. It doesn't matter about that, but I love to make pound cakes.
And then Tracy Welch Miller is wondering, from the first cookbook, is there something in particular that jumps to your mind that you love cooking?
Yes, and it's a non-cooked item. It's peanut butter bars. I've made them 33 years now. 32 years. I don't know why I keep adding a year. I've made them since we were married. My husband loved them and the boys love them. And then all their friends love them. So that's probably my favorite. And it's easy. It's an easy recipe.
Jennifer Lilly asks a very special question. What do you like most about having this social media, Facebook page, etc.?
What I like most is the camaraderie. People communicate back and forth, not just with me, but with one another.
Mhm.
And I love the fact that I'm able to share my love of cooking and my love of Jesus and have a faith element to it, and then do fun stuff too, and on location stuff too. It's
Yeah.
awesome. I love it.
Yes, and I think for myself, there have been so many surprises. You have a set of goals when you're doing something like this, and then there is just a lot that reveals itself to you.
Yeah. Yes.
And there's been so many endearing moments, and
Mhm.
sometimes I'm up late at night editing things or checking on things, and someone pops up a question and I answer them, and they're so surprised that I'm answering right then. And we get chatting back and forth, and relationships build. And
Yes.
I recognize those names, and I'm so happy
Hey,
to hear from people, etc. It's
exactly.
always, for me, it's always about the people.
Yes, most definitely. And I love that people share it back and forth with me, even when I see them in public places. They'll go, "Girl, I tried them peanut butter bars, and my family's hooked." I love to hear that kind of stuff.
Yes. Now, Janice Denny, do you have gluten-free recipes?
Yes, Janet, I do. Is it Janice or Janet?
Janice Denny, yes.
Janice, I do have gluten-free recipes. I've done gluten-free pies. I've done gluten-free chocolate chip pumpkin muffins. And I can't remember that they would be online. You can always find
But
them.
I know the answer to that.
Yes, you do.
Yes, you can find them on the Facebook page, but the easiest, I think, visually is to go over to YouTube to Lisa Cooking, Cutting Up and Keeping It Real. And there's a healthy recipes playlist where you can
Oh,
see
that's
those.
awesome. Yeah.
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 And Suki Supple says, how do you cook flavor with no fat?
Woo. I don't know the answer to that right off.
Ding, ding, ding,
Um,
ding, ding, ding,
herbs.
ding, ding.
Herbs would be an
Yes.
option. Yeah.
Yeah. Plus,
Mhm.
earlier today, Lisa, you and I were talking about one of the questions that had been sent in, and it was from Melissa Sodaro. How do you decide on substitutes? And we were talking about some of that. Can you run that off? It sort of would answer this
Yeah.
chat as well.
Melissa. It was Melissa.
Yeah.
Yeah. Melissa, to be honest with you, it comes from experience and asking other good cooks that you know of that are in your life, whether they're at your church, whether they're in your family. Ask them what they're using for substitutes. I think the first real substitute that I had to figure out when I was first married, my husband loves homemade cornbread, and so did my father in law. And so I had to learn how to convert regular milk to sour milk, or, because it calls for buttermilk. And I called and asked Andy's aunt at the time, and God rest her soul, she's not with us here on the earth anymore, but she gave me great tips. And these older people that have cooked all their life, they are a plethora of knowledge when it comes to that, because they grew up in a time where some things weren't available and they had to make do with what they had, right?
Mm. But you and I also named some examples earlier this morning when we were meeting, and we were talking about how oil can be substituted
Yes.
with.
Applesauce, pumpkin puree, that gives it sweet as well, or an egg. Janet, you pointed out that it could be an egg.
Yes.
And now too, I have to say, with everyone online, it is so easy to ask Google, how can I substitute to make buttermilk? If I,
Yes,
you can ask
exactly.
all those questions, but my information did not come from Google. It literally came from my relatives and close friends that I knew were cooking and knew what they were doing. I just asked them.
I just saw a fun question on here. Where was it?
Okay.
This is from Melissa and Flannery. Does your family ever not like what you cook? And do you still make it even though they don't like it?
The answer is yes. I have had plenty of things that I've cooked over the years that they're like, I'll give you one example. When I first started having rosemary, I thought the more rosemary, the better. On a whole chicken, I put it in the crock pot. I cooked it. We came home from church to eat it. They wouldn't eat it. The dog wouldn't eat it. It was so strong with so much rosemary. So that's kind of a funny story, because they were like, no, this isn't good. And then I really tried to feed the chicken to the dog, and the dog wouldn't eat it either. So I think it's trial and error, but no, I do not cook it again if they don't like it. It's a waste of time and money.
Yeah. Um, let me see now. Did we answer this one already? One dish that you cook that never turns out right? Shannon Davis asked that.
Cheesecake. My mother's 5-star cheesecake recipe is one of the best I've ever tasted. And it looks beautiful when my brother or my mother does it. But in my oven, for whatever reason, and it may be operator error, I always get a crack in mine. It tastes good, but I get a crack in mine. So that would probably be my.
And that's that video on the 5-star cheesecake by your mother. Again, go over to YouTube and you'll find it easily. There's some very specific instructions that she follows.
Yes.
Get
Yes.
that right.
Yes. Very specific.
Judy Carroll says, can you name one of the most challenging new recipes that you've done?
Challenging. I don't know I don't know how to answer a challenging question about it. Any new recipe that I do is challenging in its own right, because I've never done it. I can do a lot of the recipes blindfolded. I've done them so many times. So if I'm doing a new recipe, it's always a challenge.
Kimberly Tomlin says, what is your favorite tailgate recipe?
Oh, that's easy. Boston butt. We do Boston butts for tailgates, and it feeds a lot of people. It's a pork butt, and we season it with Montreal steak seasoning, and it is to die for if you cook it right. So it's easy. It's everybody loves it, and it's very filling, and it feeds a lot of people.
Uh, you had that at your party when I was there.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, yes.
delicious. Okay,
Plus, they
April.
freeze easily too. I should have mentioned that, Janet, because you can freeze that meat that's left over. If you have leftovers, it freezes beautifully.
Um, April Creed McDonald, favorite recipe handed down through family.
Oh, definitely my Granny Ingles fried chicken. And I'll tell you why. None of us had really ever been told by Granny exactly how she did it. So when I wrote the cookbook, I called my baby cousin, Josh. He was a baby when I was a teenager. I carried him around everywhere. Anyway, and he had been enough, spent enough time in Granny's house outside of Sundays when we all came, and watched her do it. And he's the one that told me how she did it.
Okay. What is your favorite go-to dinner recipe for, that you cook most often?
Oh, definitely a grilled chicken, like the Italian dressing marinated in that, and then do a pasta, whether it's from a box or whether it's homemade, and a salad or asparagus. And that's an easy one, and it's still pretty healthy.
Beverly Johns wants to know if gravy is too thin, how do you thicken it?
You would add some more flour to it, but you have
Timing
to.
on that?
It's about timing, because you put the flour in, you want it to brown a little bit and then thicken. So I'm not certain about that answer.
Now Gary Glenda Dove, best spices for everyday use.
Oh, easy, hands down. Garlic powder, onion powder, salt and pepper. You can do a lot of things with those four.
And that is your everyday spice blend, and that is a recipe that is also easily found on the YouTube channel.
Yeah, it also has parsley in it, but you could add, your flavor to it. You could put something hot in it, like cayenne pepper or some pepper flakes if you
Right.
prefer, or even chili powder.
And I will add that some of the viewers are aware that there's a fan subscriptions, and sometimes nitty-gritty things like that is the extra that's offered up through those subscribers.
Yes.
So in
Yes.
the fan subscription, you did a whole tour of your spice cupboard, and you talked about the
Yeah.
staples that you keep in your pantry,
Yeah.
etc. So some people have been able to see a more detailed response to that. Now, do you have a recipe for a good bone broth? That's from Kay Harris.
I do not. I have never made bone broth.
Cool. Something to learn.
Yeah, for sure.
Carolyn French Johnson says, how do you do recipes on how to can vegetables?
I do. I have done recipes on green beans, tomatoes, pickles, pickled okra, salsa, and spaghetti sauce. Oh, and peaches. I canned peaches one time.
And we do have a playlist for
Yes.
canning and preserves and
Preserving.
flavorings that you
Yes.
make. Now this person, Linda Walker, is saying, why is it that your canning lids are heated in hot water? She has read somewhere not to do that, but you do that. So what's your rationale?
Good question. I don't know. I've just always done it that way, and it heats up the rubber, the little rubber red ring. And I think the heat of that and having your jars sterilized, and lots of times mine are still warm even then you're putting in hot liquid, I think it helps with the sealing process.
And Tawana Jenkins says, do you water bath the pumpkin and apple butters?
I turn mine upside down when I have them hot and leave it for 15 minutes, turn them right side up. And you can tell whether it seals or not. There's a little dimple in the middle. And when you push down on that dimple, just let it sit, and you can hear them popping. When you see that little dimple in the middle, you can push down on it and feel that it's sealed. That's a shortcut that one of my relatives shared with me. So it's not something that I always recommend, especially if you've never canned before. And there's plenty of information on the internet about safe canning and all that kind of stuff.
Marcia Fowler asks, do you make a good pumpkin dip?
I do. It has pumpkin, cream cheese, and pumpkin pie spice. And then I serve mine with graham crackers or gingerbread. Not gingerbread, ginger snaps.
Okay. Um, Now, there are a few people, Lisa Bowles Delaney, Ellie Bullock, um, Michelle Kavanaugh. They're asking about the holiday season, whether or not there's any Christmas baking or cooking coming up, whether or not you make Christmas candy, and your favorite dinner for the holidays.
I have made Christmas candy in the past to give away as gifts. And I have dear friends that do a lot of that at Christmas, Howard and Amy Harville. I will be doing Christmas baking. And of course, cooking just comes along with that. I haven't picked a theme or have introduced anything on the page that we're going to do this or that. So it'll be classic Christmas cooking for around here.
And I will remind people that last year we ran an invitation to viewers to send in their favorite cookie recipes. And
Yes.
my high school students helped do the art to decorate those recipes.
Yes.
We spent over a month publishing and putting up on the page the cookie recipes from the viewers, and it was a
Yes.
wonderful experience. And on the Facebook page, you can hit photos and pick an album, and there's an entire photo album of those cookie recipes that the viewers submitted
Yes.
to us last year.
Yes.
Yes, so that's awesome. Now, Bobetta Calvert Bullens asks about the peanut butter bars. She noticed you refrigerated them the other day, and then she's wondering, do they always have to be refrigerated, or what's up with that?
Great question. I refrigerate them if they're too gooey. It sets them up in the refrigerator. And 9 times out of 10, they get eaten so quickly around here that I don't feel like I have to refrigerate them. I mean, our house stays at between 70 and 72 degrees, so it's not like it's hot. If it was in the summertime and it was hot and you were going to leave them out, I would definitely say refrigerate them if your house is not cool like that. But they don't stick around here long enough for me to ever get them to the refrigerator if the consistency is of that it's not too sticky. If they're too sticky, I naturally refrigerate them just to kind of give them some time to gel up, easier to handle.
Jackie Stalker, this is a health question again. Do you have any diabetic recipes?
I have done a couple things with Truvia and Splenda. So yes, I do that. I've done of late. I've done pumpkin butter and used Truvia and Truvia brown sugar. So there's always ways you can cut the sugar on things if you really want to. You can use honey, agave, as a substitute.
And the times that I've subbed in for Lisa, like when you had your knee surgery, I think I made over 25 recipes.
Yeah.
And pretty much all of my recipes are diabetic friendly because I happen to be a diabetic.
Right.
So I'm always eating with the healthiest choices with that in mind.
Right.
And so if you see my face somewhere, it's probably diabetic friendly.
Right.
Yeah. Who is your favorite cook?
Oh, Paula Deen, hands down. And I also love to watch Trisha Yearwood, and I like the Pioneer Lady.
And right now,
and I like Rachel Ray. I forgot about Rachel Ray, so I like her too. And I like there's lots of them on the Food Network that I will watch, but Paula Deen's my favorite of all time.
Rita Johnson wants to know, how do you make a custard pie without the crust going mushy?
I don't know the answer to that, to be honest.
I think I do.
Good.
I used to watch my mother do those, and she always cooked her homemade pie crust first and then put the custard in. And so you can probably look that up on the internet, but I do believe that there's certain pies that it's better to cook your crust first.
Right.
Yeah. Um, how do you prevent, she's also asking, how do you prevent dumplings from being gummy in chicken and dumplings?
Well, you need to have your water and your chicken, what am I trying to say? Your chicken broth really hot when you drop those dumplings in. That may prevent it. I don't know the answer to that. That would be one she would need to look up on the internet. But you do need to have that liquid to a certain temperature before you drop your dumplings in, so they'll cook fast and not get too gummy.
Lisa, we are down to less than a minute, and this is like superb, and we got through so many questions.
Yeah.
I almost feel like we
And we
may,
got to pick a winner.
we do, but I don't have that at my fingertips right now.
Okay.
Maybe we should do a part 2 so we can be more inclusive of more people. I'll sort and organize the questions, and we'll come up with something.
Okay. So
All
are
right.
we going to announce the winner, or how are we going to do that?
I don't have that right here on my
Okay.
fingertips right now, but so Lisa, here we are continuing with our questions that were sent in by viewers. And of course, we're going to announce a winner momentarily here, but we were trying to get through as many questions as we could out of respect for the effort that the viewers put into putting them there. Of course,
Right.
we can't get to every single one because we had such a favorable response to that post. We're approaching 200
Oh, that's
questions
awesome.
that were written in. Luckily, some of them were repeats, and so the question is being addressed somehow
Right.
for most of them.
Right.
So I have a viewer named Debbie Denham Smith, another one named Debbie Willis, and then one by the name of Patsy Ball. And they're all asking questions about devotions.
Okay.
So Debbie Willis wants to know, where do you get your daily devotionals? You
I'm,
might be referring to
I'm
the one that's
assuming,
written.
is she talking about the written one that I post?
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah. The written one that I post, I get as a text from a minister that used to be in Morehead City, North Carolina. And a friend of mine, Joy, gave me, she would share some with me that she had. And I said, how do I get on that list? And so somehow, I don't know, 5 years ago, maybe more, Joy got me on that list. So I get that every day. I read that every single day. It always speaks to me. That's that part of the question. The other part of the question is when I do a live devotion, I feel like it's very spirit led. I don't do them every day. And I try to do a devotion for myself every day. And sometimes I fall short, but anyway, I do like sharing devotions. I think it shows and it gives everybody a place to meet and talk about their faith for a little while.
And you've often spoken about how it sets the tone for your day to start well.
It does. It does. If I start my day with a devotion, it does set the tone to a brighter spot, a more positive spot, because I, have been in the Word and I'm thinking about that.
Mm-hmm. And Debbie Denham Smith, she was saying, what is your favorite devotional material for understanding the Word?
Well, I've said this online, the Passion Translation of the Bible, it is Old Testament plus Psalms. It's so easy to read. It's more like a story rather than like the King James Version. Now, the Bible that I do my own devotion from is from the NIV, and I love that Bible because it gives explanations at the bottom. And then I will cross-reference with the Passion Translation lots of times because it's a hard interpretation. And so if you get it from two different sources, it's always more helpful to me.
This is pretty sweet. Patsy Ball wants to know if you would ever think about writing a book of your devotions.
Oh, wow. I haven't really thought of that. It would be a blessing to do it. But I have never really put my brain around that. It would be, I don't know, Janet, we'd have to go back through the videos probably and pull them
Yeah.
and put them in written form. But it's easy to say that you're going to write a book. There's a lot of work and hours that goes into writing a book, as you and I both well know from
You
the
do
cookbook.
know,
Yeah.
yes. Anyone wanting to get back to devotions, to recordings, could type in their Facebook search bar, cooking, cutting up devotions. And
Yeah.
or we had kitchen ministry as a title at one point, and it would
Yes.
bring those back, and they are
Yes.
inspirational and worth watching again, and helps connect people together in a really positive
Yeah.
spirit
Yeah.
of kindness, which is what our sort of belief statement is for
Yeah.
the blog. And that leads me into almost an opposite type of question, which is from Glenna Mullins. And she says, what's up? I go to all these other Facebook pages that are filled with negative comments. Do you ever get negative comments on the
Ooh.
blog?
You know what we do? And jokingly, I call Janet the police on the page. But Janet and I, when we started working together, really talked a lot about negative, the way that if the feed goes negative, then there's more negativity underneath, and it just seems to be a pattern. So, Janet, you do a great job policing the page, and we communicate back and forth as well. Like, oh, did you see that comment? There's a difference in sharing your opinion about a subject matter than it is to attack someone. And so we try to keep our page clean. I call it clean. We try to eliminate some of that if there's like an attack on someone.
Yes, and that is so true, that we have a really solid philosophy about this page,
Yes,
what our beliefs are about integrity, authenticity, staying true to our sense of purpose.
exactly.
And that comes back to the word kindness all the time. And
Yes,
people want to express an opinion where they don't like a recipe or something that's in the video. We are completely fine with that. But
yes,
if they take on a tone or a language that takes things down into a combative place where
yes,
the loyal viewers are being supportive, but then it just starts to be a back and forth between viewers,
yes,
hurtful to people, then it is completely part of Facebook's guidelines for us to work hard to keep the atmosphere professional, because it is a
yes,
business page.
yes.
So we work really hard, and lately we haven't had much of that at all. And
No,
really
we haven't.
the
Been
main
nice.
thing, yeah, the main thing we get lately is just those, will you make me your friend, which is just that computer bot that's
Generated.
going out through, and I try to catch those and get rid of those every day. But yeah, it's been quite fortunate the last couple of years. I think
Yes,
maybe because we set a foundation, and
yes,
it helps a lot.
yes.
So then we have some pasta questions, or you would say pasta, and I say pasta. You pointed out to me. And the pasta questions are Carl Ligon. I don't know how he pronounces his last name. Um, he's talking about Nancy's mac and cheese. And
Yes.
I'm going to tell you both questions. He's asking, can you parboil the noodles first? And then another viewer is asking, this is Kimberly Hannum, in crock pot lasagna, do you add extra water to cook the noodles? So what do you have to say about that?
Well, the Nancy's mac and cheese, the whole reason for that, the love of that recipe from me, is that it doesn't dirty up but one dish. So I like to put enough liquid in it, and with the butter so that I don't have to boil the pasta first. To answer that person's question, yes, you can boil the pasta first. You need to be careful though that it doesn't get mushy, because it's going to bake too. And as far as the lasagna recipe, I don't add more water. I stay real close to the recipe with that. Mhm.
Yeah, and you have mentioned that if people want softer noodles in the Nancy's mac and cheese, they can have the recipe sit for a while before
Yes.
it is cooked. And I know why, with my own lasagna in a traditional oven, I never cook my noodles beforehand. And
Yeah,
I
I
don't,
think it gets a little too mushy.
yeah,
Yeah.
I don't even buy the ones that say no cook ahead on the box, right?
Right, right.
The food that surrounds it seems to make them soft enough.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I have Cheryl Browning asking if the pumpkin butter that you made turned
Mm.
out thick.
It is thick. I added a little bit of water to mine because I wanted to be able to spread it, on toast or in between a biscuit or whatever. And so, yes, it is a very thick consistency.
Hmm. Okay. Here's a viewer who's been out picking apples. I love this question because I come from a farming community that's all about
Yeah.
apples.
Yes.
So let's see now. It was Sue Zakara Cunningham and also Pam Blanton, two different viewers that spoke about if you've been out picking apples or you have quite a few of them, what are some ways that you can use them?
Well, I always, if I have extra or somebody gives me some, you can peel them, put them in salt water, drain them, and freeze them to use for later for cooked apples or for apple jam or apple cobbler or whatever. That's what I would do with them.
Hmm. And you do have a number of apple recipes. You've done a crisp. I've done an apple crisp. It's basically whether you're doing a peach crisp or an apple crisp, the crumble's
Right.
the same, right? Don't when you and Tracy did fritters, was which kind of fritters were those? Do you remember?
Peach.
Peach, yeah.
Because Tracy loves peaches, but we've done apple dump cake, my granny's apple pie. We like apples around here. After
Hmm.
apple butter, I love apple butter, and I love giving that as a gift.
And we've never put salt on ours to freeze them. We've sliced them and just put them in as they are in a Ziploc bag or in a container. Applesauce, you just boil the apples up and add cinnamon and nutmeg and
And
whatever
let them
you like
cook.
for flavors, and same thing, we just freeze it as is.
Yeah.
Eat it all winter long.
Yes.
So, yeah, awesome. I see that most fruits you don't need to do too much to, like some people would have blanched vegetables to freeze.
Yes.
Don't have to do that so much with apples.
Yes.
Okay. This is Belinda McGee. Have you ever made pear preserves or cinnamon pickles?
I have never made pear preserves, but I have made cinnamon pickles, but we call them watermelon rind pickles here. It has a lot of cinnamon in it, and they turn kind of a reddish color. They're delicious. It takes a whole lot of watermelon rind to make a batch.
And what about, I feel like I remember seeing that video,
Huh?
with the watermelon. Mitzi Watson wants to know if you've ever canned pickled radishes.
I have not. I listen. To be honest, I don't like radishes. I don't like them any way you cook them or whether you slice them and put them on a salad. They're not my thing. I have done pickled beets, which is vegetable that's hard like a radish, and it tastes a lot like it has like a earthy taste. But no, I have never done pickled radishes.
Greg and Tina Morrow are into farming, and they talk about farm tours. And so I think that brings up an interesting topic that we've talked about before, being in social media, having people come to your personal property.
Yes. And what about it?
Well, it's a sort of a security thing, isn't it? To
Yeah.
keep your personal life limited as to what you show. You share an awful lot.
Yeah.
But we have a massive size audience in our comprehension. We can barely
Yeah.
comprehend it.
Yes.
And you have other people who live on your property with you, who you try to allow them to have a bit of a private life.
That's exactly right. Plus, Janet, you actually rode with Andy and I on our Sunday date day, going around and looking at fields and checking crops, and it's spread out. It's not like we're
Mhm.
sitting on this large piece of property where we have all of our farms. All the stuff that we farm right there at us. It's a little different in our county, the way the land is laid out. But that is a thing that I like to keep personal. There are neighbors, most of them are related to us, that may or may not appreciate that, you know.
Yeah, I know here with our farmers, there are actually health and food guidelines about people setting foot onto your soil or in your chicken
Yeah,
barn or
that's right.
whatever, so
That's right.
sometimes that can be a question mark as well. Now, Molly Simmons Riley is interested when you simmer a pot on the stove to allow the scent to diffuse through your kitchen. What are you using when you do that?
Oh, somebody told me years ago that it was the same thing they used at William and Sonoma, and it is lemon, vanilla flavoring, and fresh rosemary, and let that simmer. It smells clean. It just has a really clean smell. That's the best way I can describe it.
Have you used your essential oils sometimes?
Yes, I have. Uh-huh. When I want to, like if I fry bacon or sausage, you know how that smells up the house. So
Hmm.
I'll put water in my tea kettle and put in lemon, orange, lavender, essential oils, and a little bit of peppermint and a little bit of a thing called On Guard. It's by doTERRA, and it's a clean smell as well. It has a clovey smell, but it's supposed to also promote, better health or whatever. But it smells up the kitchen really nice.
Have you ever done persimmon pudding? This is Brenda West asking this.
I have not. A lot of people around here do persimmon pudding. I would love to see the process. And I've eaten persimmon pudding, and I liked it okay. It wouldn't be something that I would go, hey, I want to make a whole batch of that.
Mhm.
It's kind of got the consistency of the not the crust, but like a crustless pumpkin pie. It has that consistency, but the persimmons have a little bit of grit in them, almost like a fig.
Uh, Linda Cutilla, when she does things with like sauces or foods with a tomato base, to which you add a cream, she finds the cream curdles. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Never have done that. I have never done that. I do not have any. Um, I've never done a pasta sauce and tried to add cream to it, like a la vodka sauce. I've never made my own.
Okay. Um, Here's a question for me.
Okay.
This is from Rosemary Collins, and she asks me my favorite food. You think you can guess it, Lisa?
Um, well, I would say pound cake, but you just pound cake with me. No, it's not that. I don't know. You're
What
putting
are
me
you
on the spot.
always saying when I go out to a restaurant? Take a picture of your.
Lobster rolls. Yes. And there where you live, they're everywhere. And here is, oh,
Mhm.
that's a real treat. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. I
uh,
forgot
you
about that.
know, I that's my go-to when I'm at a restaurant near the ocean is to have seafood. And
Mhm.
in particular, I like a lobster sandwich, but if they don't have it, I have a lobster roll.
Mhm.
And
That's
and you asked me for pictures and I finally made a video, put it over to
mm-hmm.
YouTube of all the different plates of lobster
Hmm.
and seafood.
That
Uh,
makes my mouth water, Janet, like right here in the back. Like that
yeah,
gets a little water.
that's one of the main reasons you're coming to Nova Scotia, right?
Yeah. Well, no, the main reason would be to visit you, but we definitely would have to eat lobster rolls.
Have you made homemade a yeast bread recipe? Brenda Silver would like to know.
I've never made yeast rolls. I did, however, for years. I had an elderly patient when I was doing dental hygiene work who gave me a sourdough starter. And I kept that thing alive for years. And I made sourdough bread because I could give it away. We could eat it here, or I could freeze it. And that glass that I had it in with the lid on it fell out of the refrigerator and busted. And
Um,
I thought, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? So I looked up a couple recipes online to learn how to start one. And I did successfully start one, but the bread did not turn out correctly. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to do this. So I had a starter for sourdough bread, but I've never done homemade yeast rolls.
so Mary Koenig de Corsi and Susan Anderson Lusk. They're both asking biscuit questions. Mary wants to know about homemade biscuits in gravy.
I
You
don't
don't?
make my biscuits homemade. I'm gonna tell you why. Because there is a bag in the freezer section at most grocery stores around here, and it's called Mary B's, the letter B. And they are frozen and they're about this big, and they bake up exactly like a homemade biscuit. So that is one thing. I've made them in the past, and I made a recipe one time that I found somewhere on the internet. But that homemade biscuits is not something that I routinely make. Now gravy, I do make gravy.
Yes. And
I make gravy for country style steak always.
that was just this week. Yeah.
I also love to make sausage gravy.
And you made that while I was visiting, and we also have a video kind of in slow motion that I re-edited that's over on the YouTube channel, where anyone new to making gravy can go see the steps. It's got
Yes,
some typing and in pictures and in
yes, making
video, step
gravy
by
is definitely something you need to see
step.
if you've never made it before.
Yeah.
Because there's
So,
not a measurement. You don't say, hey, add 1 cup of this, 1 cup of flour to 2
right.
cups of rendered grease. You have to really do it.
So Susan's question was, she'd been making biscuits and they turned out flat. And I have always found that if you overwork the dough, then they end up flat.
Yeah, that's what people say. Like I said, I'm not an expert on making
Yeah.
biscuits.
I make them quite a bit, and it's hard because as a perfectionist, you want to stir all that dry ingredient in until it
Yeah,
looks wet, but you're allowed to leave some of that loose in your dough, and you don't need to work it all in everywhere and have it perfect.
right.
Yeah. So here's Karen Williams, and she's talking about picky eaters in her family, knowing
Mhm.
that you have some,
Whoop, whoop, I do.
and she's trying to avoid monotony and change up the meal plan
Yes,
for her household.
yes.
So any thoughts on that?
It's so hard if you have multiple picky eaters in your household. I too have that challenge because some of the things that now that Spencer's living at home, some of the things he likes, Andy doesn't care for, vice versa. So I just have to pick and choose, and I let them know what I'm making ahead of time. If I'm making something like that, I will usually have some type of option. It may be a sandwich. You know what I mean? Like if I'm making,
Yes.
something that I know one of them is not going to eat.
And what I would say to her is, because I've been spending the last couple of months pulling videos from Facebook and organizing them again into nice playlists and YouTube. When I was doing chicken, for example, I did a lot of chicken recipes all at once to move over.
Hmm.
And you have so many variations on the theme of chicken, for example, and any of those categories. There's so many videos in each playlist. So we have over 3,000 videos on Facebook. We're over 300 now of strictly the cooking ones so far on YouTube. And just go have a quick look at the titles, and it might give you some ideas of what your
Yes.
people might eat.
Yes. And chicken, the nice thing about chicken is it takes on the flavor of whatever you're seasoning it with or marinating it with.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Doreen Pace is asking about the recipes handed down from family. How often are you using recipes that are from your family?
Weekly, I use them all the time. And I always think of that person, especially if it's somebody who's already gone on.
Mhm,
Um, uh, you think it triggers that memory of you watching them make it or them telling you how to make it.
mhm,
So yes, very often I use family recipes, and that was the whole preface of the second cookbook, Granny's Farm to Table. Are recipes like that were handed down that my family uses.
mhm. Now, we have two people asking a similar question. One is Stacy D. Dickerman, and the other is Wanda G. Edens Mulligan. And they're both talking about your daily schedule. So Stacy is saying, your plate is full. How do you manage it all? And then Wanda is saying, what does a typical day look like?
Well, first off, thank you for that. But I will say this, it doesn't always happen like I want it to happen. Just like life, it can change on a dime. Um, I think people find a way to do the things that they love. And that's what I'll say about that. I love doing this, so I will find a way to get it in there sometime.
Mhm.
And it's not every day, you know. I have a life too outside of the internet and outside of Facebook, cooking, cutting up, keeping it real, and obligations and those kind of things. But I do think that people in general will find time to do what they love.
I've always found that busy people are the busiest.
They are.
They take on the next, they're so
Yes,
motivated and energized by what they do if they're doing something they
yes.
love, that they take on the next thing and the next thing.
I'm very task oriented. So I
Mhm.
like to have a list, and then I like to cross off the list the things that I've been able to accomplish that day. Now, I have gotten to the age that it doesn't bother me. It did when I was younger. It would bother me if I didn't have all those things crossed off at the end of
Mhm.
the day. But now I'm to the age that I think, okay, that can go on tomorrow's list or even Friday, next Friday or whatever. I can let that go a little bit.
And you and I work very similarly. We love starting up our day with an early meeting before it gets
Yes.
interrupted.
Yes.
And often we move on to other tasks, or when I was teaching or whatever, we other tasks during the main part of the day.
Right.
And then sometimes there's things that recur or that we have to go back to in the
That's
evening.
right. That's
And
right.
and we love doing this so much that sometimes it just doesn't really feel like, well, it just doesn't feel like work.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like work. And I'll tell you this is kind of funny. Um, even when I don't video what I'm doing in the kitchen, I still lay everything out strategically as if I'm videoing
Mhm,
because I've gotten so accustomed that. I mean, it's been 9 years of doing this, and
mhm.
you can see in the old videos, Lord, I was all over the place. I
And
forgot
they're
to use
fun to
butter.
watch. They're
Yeah,
fun to
they're
watch
funny.
for that very reason.
Yeah, they're funny, but I mean, literally, I was like, oh, this calls for butter. Oh, that means I have to get it out of the refrigerator. So I've learned with recipes, especially ones that people want to try to replicate themselves, it's easier if I have everything in my vision.
Mhm.
Not to say I don't forget an ingredient here or there when I'm doing them now. I still will have to say, let me grab a spoon or whatever.
Yeah. And I mean, it's always just been such a blessing that you talk about this, doing this cooking, cutting up, because whether you were in this dental office or that dental office, or working in other areas of health, or whichever avenue your career keeps taking, this has been fun to go to.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
it's definitely my fun hobby type
Yes.
thing. And it keeps me stimulated thinking of, oh, I would love to, it's pumpkin season, for instance. Oh, I would love to try
Yes.
these pumpkin cookies. They look so
Yeah.
good. Or
And there was another viewer, unfortunately, I don't have the name written down, who was like, how do you come up with all those ideas and everything that you think of to do? But what I would say is that we feed off of one another, and the list is always of the dreams of what we love to
yes,
do or would like
yes,
to bring to the viewers is always greater than what time allows us to get to.
absolutely.
And that's a
Absolutely.
great way to have it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, we would like to thank all of the participants
Yes.
in the last 24 hours who have put their questions up. And there are so many who responded who said, I don't have a question. I just want to compliment and thank. And so, it was just so exciting for both of us to read through those.
Well, we
Um,
love a giveaway.
we do,
Love a
and
giveaway.
there'll be more.
Yes.
And it's exciting that this one's the cookbook, but we can't name the winner without really appreciating all of you. You are what makes this happen, all the
Absolutely.
viewers, right? And we're so lucky
Absolutely.
to have such great, wonderful viewers. So, drum roll, please. The winner of the cookbook is Wanda Edens Mulligan.
Awesome. Congratulations, Wanda. So,
Yes.
so Wanda will need to send us in private messenger your address, your physical mailing address, so we can get that to you.
Yes, please.
Yes.
Congratulations, Wanda.
Congratulations.
So thank you so much again, and we'll see you next time.
See ya. Bye, everybody.
Bye.